common question we get asked is, what happens if things aren't going right? How do we challenge employees or contractors to make sure things are as safe as they need to be? It is a bit of a difficult challenge because when somebody isn't doing something they should be doing, how do you challenge them? As somebody in a health and safety capacity, how do we enforce that or ask people to comply with the rules and requirements in which are already been set by the company? A good example of how this is run well can be that if you find that somebody isn't quite following the right rules, of course, the first stage is to make sure they understand and make sure we educate people as best we can. But sometimes it's a little bit more stubborn and people can sometimes decide not to follow those rules. So the best advice that I've come across over the years of working in health and safety is to challenge that person just to make sure that they do understand. It's kind of like a reward system for giving them a pat on the back for doing it right, but also challenging them if they're doing it wrong. If you find again that it's not going right and they're deciding not to follow those rules, then it's much more of a difficult decision because they do know what's going on, but it's difficult to motivate them to do the right thing. So typically I would use that as a second opportunity for a learning experience, talk to them, challenge them, explain the good practices that you really want to see. If it happens again, unfortunately, you come to a point where you're probably not getting through or they decided not to follow those rules. The best advice in that scenario that I can give out is ask them in a very responsible and comfortable way to leave. Ask them to go home. You're not dismissing anybody, you're not instigating any disciplinary procedures. You're just asking them to step away from the workplace, go home, come back tomorrow morning and have a chat about it. That's normally enough of a shock to the system for them to realise you're not messing about. What it also does is it'll activate some kind of line management responsibility, so the supervisor will be curious or even upset that you've sent somebody to go home to come back tomorrow. That's enough of a trigger point for you to justify and say, these are the reasons why I'm doing it, and there's a health and safety critical reason why it's happening. Another unfortunately difficult scenario can be sometimes if contractors aren't doing the job that they promised to do or are doing the job unsafely. What we tend to find is really effective with this, that it's not causing too much disruption to the business, is that we'll ask them to stop the work that they're doing, make it safe, have a chat with them to explain what's going on. We can ask those contractors to stop the work that they're doing, take them away from that place, make it safe, and then give them the opportunity to either commit to doing it differently, or if you don't feel like it's going to be complied with, then just remove them from the workplace, ask them to leave site and come back with their manager to justify why their decision making is different to what was written in there. Now sometimes you can benchmark that against the risk assessments and method statements or even the permit to work that the contractors are working to. Hold them to account for it, and if they do need to change the rules, they need to change those documents to match. But taking them away from the workplace, you're not stopping the project, you're not saying that it's unsafe and they can't carry on, but you are making it very clear that you're not going to let it go as it was. It is a difficult subject and it needs to be followed sensitively. You don't want to be a health and safety manager that shuts the place down for no reason, or if you do have valid reason, you need to make sure it's a sensible approach and you're not deliberately causing obstruction because of your own interests or your own ego. Being a good health and safety manager is normally about making sure you've made the right decisions, convinced and influenced people to do a job safely and followed the company procedures, not to shut the place down.